please come on in. Some chairs here. Well, good morning and welcome to the Kentucky Attorney General's office. I'm proud this morning to be joined by the Executive Director of the Kentucky Historical Society, Scott Alvey, and our special guest, Mr. Peter Canellos, author of The Great Dissenter. We're here today, my friends, to honor a great Kentuckian. Indeed, a man Mr. Canellos called America's judicial hero. But we're also here to honor the institution, to elevate the institution that he served so well. And I'm not talking about the United States Supreme Court in this instance. Since the publication of Mr. Canellos' book in 2021, John Marshall Harlan has returned to the national spotlight. His opinions, his speeches, his legacy is receiving a fresh look, both from academia and in the popular culture. So as Kentuckians, we thought it was only right to contribute in our own way to the Harlan Renaissance. We're hoping to ignite a renewed sense of appreciation of Harlan's work, his impact, right here in Kentucky, right here in the Commonwealth. So this morning, I won't be discussing the better known Justice Harlan. I won't even be discussing Colonel Harlan, who strived to defend this very state capitol, which we'll be spending time later today, who fought courageously to preserve the Union in our Civil War. Today, we'll be paying tribute to Attorney General John Marshall Harlan, Kentucky's 14th Attorney General, who served from 1863 until 1867. Now, the timing of this event today could not be any better. This past Saturday, we celebrated the anniversary of Kentucky's admission to the Union in 1792. It was also Harlan's 191st birthday. John Marshall Harlan served as Attorney General during turbulent times for our Commonwealth and for our nation. Partisanship and division were rampant. Violent crime threatened the very rule of law, and the federal government amassed unprecedented power over the states. Thankfully, we don't have to contend with any problems like that in present day. It was in that setting that Harlan stepped into the Attorney General's office. He, like every other Kentuckian that's been honored to hold this position before me, animated this institution in Kentucky's public life. Truly, the Attorney General's office holds a unique and consequential role for our Commonwealth. Every other Kentucky constitutional officer, including our governor, whose office, as you know, is just a few years from where we stand, draws their authority from the Kentucky Constitution and from statutes passed by our General Assembly. The Attorney General's role, though, however, goes back even farther. Before Kentucky's latest Constitution, 1891 Constitution, and even before the Constitution of the United States, the work of this office finds its origins, its authority, way back to common law. So in theory, both Harlan and I could claim many of the same common law powers that the King's Attorney General exercised in 1607, and the status of the common law on June 1st, 1792, when Kentucky's first Constitution was adopted. It is a heavy responsibility, but one crucial to our Commonwealth. Everyone who's served in this office, everyone who has served as Attorney General or as our talented staff in these offices has left an indelible mark on the history of our Commonwealth. In fact, I'm honored later today to be joined by all of but two of our living former Attorneys General, both R and Ds, at an event with Mr. Canellos here in just a few minutes. By elevating John Marshall Harlan in the public memory, we can also lift up this office as an institution and its importance to the people of our Commonwealth. So that brings us to this room, known for years simply as the Attorney General's Conference Room. It's a place where we welcome visitors, we welcome constituents, welcome tourists, where we host meetings and media events. And it's a room where we make tough decisions every day that affect the Kentuckians who we have sworn to serve. It's a perfect place, though, to highlight one of my greatest predecessors and the unique and consequential nature of the office of the Kentucky Attorney General. And that's why today I will sign in just a few moments an executive order officially designating this room as the Attorney General John Marshall Harlan conference room. We're also constructively unveiling a portrait of General Harlan on loan from our good friends of the Kentucky Historical Society. In the months and years ahead, everyone who enters this room will encounter the history of this office and the legacy of this incredible Kentuckian over my shoulder. Just a quick word about the painting. We're displaying an original portrait of the older Harlan, long before he served as Attorney General. Mr. Cross, you may have covered him. There are many stately and impressive images of Harlan that come to mind. And I'll just share, for me, I was sworn in front of one of those portraits of Harlan in the United States District Courthouse in Louisville when I had the privilege of becoming the United States Attorney for the Western District of Kentucky. That portrait now hangs in the chambers of Justice Gorsuch in the United States Supreme Court. This one, though, may be a little new to most of us, and that's good. Our goal is to shed light on Harlan's work, on his legacy. I'm proud to also display one of these lesser-known portraits and to give fuller life to the story of this incredible Kentuckian. So it's my privilege to introduce the author who has been the driving force behind this Harlan Renaissance. So Peter S. Canellos is a longtime editor for Politico, previously editor of the Boston Globe's editorial page. He shared with me a moment ago, has a long history of interacting with and covering attorneys general in the State House in Boston. His most recent book, The Great Dissenter, The Story of John Marshall Harlan, America's Judicial Hero, was named one of Publishers Weekly Best Nonfiction Books of the Year in 2021, and has earned praise from all corners, most notably all corners of this Commonwealth. We're grateful that he's come back to Kentucky to discuss his work and to take part in this dedication today. And so, on that note, welcome, Peter, welcome, Mr. Canellos.
Thank you, Attorney General Coleman. I think you're doing a great thing in honoring your illustrious predecessor here. Indeed, we were talking earlier that Justice Harlan spent some of the most difficult and complicated years of his career when he was Attorney General here. It overlapped with the period when Kentucky was under martial law. And I think he felt a deep sense of responsibility as an elected law enforcement official to try to represent the rights of Kentuckians under that incredibly difficult set of circumstances and that very complicated political situation that the Attorney General referred to. I also think that we're celebrating Harlan largely because of his incredibly illustrious judicial career, where he was a man who had the courage to stand against all of his contemporaries on some of the most important issues of the day, and to be vindicated by history. It's something that is I think all people in public life sort of hope for. They all want the verdict of history to be in their favor, and in Harlan's case, it is very much in his favor, and it spans conservatives and liberals and moderates. Everybody, I think, acknowledges Harlan's prescience and the importance of his legacy as a Supreme Court justice. Finally, I think this is also, the Harlan story is one of the most important manifestations of Kentucky history, because what made Harlan different was his experiences in Kentucky. He was serving on a Supreme Court that was almost entirely northern corporate attorneys. Some of them had been born in New York or Massachusetts, but had moved to places like Chicago or Detroit. But they were there as corporate lawyers, corporate attorneys. That was the rise of corporate law was in the middle 1800s. And Harlan, through a unique set of circumstances, stood alone on that court because of his life experiences, and all of that traces back to the Kentucky story. So it's great. It's a great moment to see Harlan honored in this way, and I'm sure he would be thrilled to know this. He was somebody, as we were saying before, who was very aware that he was appealing to the judgment of history as the great dissenter, and once even made a comment about the importance of sort of being able to live after you die. And this is a great manifestation of giving someone a chance to live as an example long after their death. So
grateful, Mr. Canellos, and so grateful for your scholarship and your passion for the subject matter. Next, please join me in welcoming Scott Alvey, the Executive Director of the Kentucky Historical Society. Scott and his team have just been exceptional partners, exceptional. As we have sought to pay tribute to Justice Harlan, as we've sought to elevate this institution, this through line of the Attorney General's office, the Historical Society has agreed to loan us this portrait and will host us, and hopefully many of you, if all of you, will join us at a public event in the House Chamber of the old state capitol in just a few moments. We'll gather in the very building where Justice Harlan, Attorney General Harlan, spent countless hours working to keep the Union together, and where he served as AG. I'm grateful for their work on this project and all they do to promote the history of this Commonwealth.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Any chance that I have the opportunity to talk about Kentucky history is always a good day. And it was really great when we got the phone call. We get these calls a lot, to be honest with you, of people saying, hey, I've got a great story that I want to work with you all on. And of course, we come out and we talk about it and we figured, but as we started digging deeper into the story, as the General said, this is a story that's not been told as well as it could be, and we're in the business of telling Kentucky history, so this is a great opportunity for us. Before I get into some of my other prepared remarks, you mentioned the 1792 Constitution. I meant to mention this when we started. We actually have the 1792 Constitution in our collection, and in fact, our logo is taken from the front page of that Constitution. It serves as a reminder all the time about not only where we've been, but how we can use that to guide our future and guide the decisions that we make. And so I think honoring Justice Harlan in this room is a great example of this public servant leadership. And how we can talk about our civic participation and how we can make our communities better and use history in that area. I want to talk a little bit about the project as it came together. I have to give a big shout out to our Director of Historical Resources, Jonathan Nofke, for curating this display. I'm going to just real briefly kind of go around the room and talk about the items that you might see as part of interpreting the story of Justice Harlan. Behind us is the John Filson map that actually showcases Harlan Station. I think the Filson map for me is very fascinating because as a lot of people recall and use that as an element, but it's not to proportion. And so if you were to take that map and it has been redrawn into the more proportionally correct areas, it really influences how the stories unfold. You'll have people who will use that map as a way to say, no, it had to have happened like this because this location was here and that location was there. And so just using the map and how history has changed because of the way that the map has changed. So it showcases where that early homestead for the Harlans existed. Over here on the wall we have the early James Harlan cabin homestead. So it gives you a background about where Justice Harlan, where his beginnings come from, how it differentiates him between others who end up serving on the Supreme Court. Over here on this wall we have an image of the Kentucky's old state capitol. It serves as the state capitol until 1910, so with Justice Harlan's death in 1911, that's probably the only capitol that he would have known for Kentucky. He serves in this capitol. He debates in this capitol. He hears about how to preserve the Union in this capitol and Kentucky's role in doing that. So I'm excited to have you down there to actually stand in the room to where these debates and to where these great conversations happen. It was the home of Kentucky's early democracy. And then, of course, we have the portrait of Justice Harlan. I think through this process, one of the pieces that has really been moving to me is we don't have a portrait or an image or the artifacts of Justice Harlan dating back to his time as Attorney General here in Kentucky. So what can we do as Kentuckians to find those elements? These are the witnesses to history, and so how do we make sure that we're preserving his legacy and going back to do that? So I'm very proud. A little bit about the portrait. It is actually painted by artist Sophia Dubuque Gray. She also done the portraits of former Kentucky governors after the fact that we formed the Hall of Governors. And so this is the portrait done in that same kind of mode. She does it after his passing away in 1911, in 1923. So again, we went on a hunt for other portraits to try to see if we could find others that might be more appropriate to the interpretation of this space as Attorney General. but we're very proud to have this one here hanging with you all today.
So we're here to talk about history and tradition, and before I sign the executive order, the culmination of our constructive unveiling here, I want to deviate from the planned agenda just briefly. As the chief law enforcement officer of our Commonwealth, our role is to lead and protect and support our law enforcement officers. It's also to carry on traditions of our law enforcement community. And so with that, I'm violating one somewhat. The history of the challenge coin is one that goes back to elite military and law enforcement units. I'm violating that because a challenge coin is given as a token of esteem. It's given as a token of respect. You don't buy one for yourself. But given the humility that should be the through line of law enforcement, it shouldn't be given in any other way than in a handshake, and then the challenge coin slipped into the pocket of the recipient and you look at it later. That's the nature of what we ask these men and women to do in law enforcement, to be humble servants without a lot of showiness. But notwithstanding that, I'm so deeply grateful to the two gentlemen that made this happen, that made this event happen later today that we're celebrating. Not the man whose name is on the door. It's not about the current Attorney General. It's not even about those gentlemen that you'll see, those previous, my predecessors. It's about this office. It is about those who serve in this office. And this, Justice Harlan, is a vehicle for us to talk about the good work of this office, how it has served this Commonwealth since its inception in 1792. So before I sign the executive order, I just, Peter, Scott, would you step over, and I'd like to present you challenge coins from the office of the Attorney General.
Oh,
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys can stay behind me, this is something.
So I'll not sentence you to listen to me read the entirety of the executive order, but the title of the executive order, Russell Coleman, Attorney General, Department of Law, Executive Order 2024-03, signed June 5th, 2024, dedicating the Attorney General John Marshall Harlan Conference Room. So thank you for being here. Thank you for covering this event, and you're all welcome to join us here in just about 35 minutes down at our old state capitol.